Hello and welcome to this, the next in the series of videos designed to help you install your Raspberry Pi meter detection systems. In the previous videos I've run through the basic hardware and also given you an overview and a brief understanding of how to install all the relevant parts to get your Raspberry Pi meter system up and running. Now there is one issue that some people may have, and that's regarding getting the Cat5 cable into the housing. Now if you have a RJ45 connection tool and some Cat5 cabling, you don't have a problem. You can quite easily push the cable into the housing, terminate it and connect it there, and then similarly once the cable's indoors you can use the same termination tool to put the RJ45 connection on the other end of the cable. However, not everyone has one of these, and not everybody wants to buy one of these, and not everybody knows how to use one of these. So we have a few options, and I'll run through those options now. So let's define the problem a little more so you can understand if it's not something you're aware of. This is the back of a camera housing. I've removed it from the main housing to make it easier to show you. And on the back there are two gland holes. And in each gland hole, this is the larger one, you're supplied a gland and a locking nut so that you can fit it on there and you can push your cables through it. Now normally you'd be pushing a very small cable through and it's not an issue. However, what we're trying to do is we're trying to fit a connection of that size through that gland, and as you can see it's not going to go without an awful lot of trouble. You can try and trim the center of that out and file it and so on and make a mess, and you might be successful, but quite often you probably won't be. So if you have the crimping tool, of course you can just pass a Cat5 cable through that gland until it's inside of the housing. So the cable would appear out here, and then once it's in the housing you can crimp your connector on and you're good to go. So we haven't got that solution. This is the cable that I've shown you previously. Those ends connect to the camera, and then this end, if I remove that part, has the RJ45 connection port, and that's where the cable from indoors needs to plug into. One solution people have is they can feed these fine cables through the gland like so. He says you can normally feed them anyway. Those would feed through the gland. They would be inside and would connect to your camera. That would leave these outside and exposed to the atmosphere, and especially if you're in the UK, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of rain. Now there is an option that you can, once you've got the other end of the connection on and your cable's in there, you can cover that with self-amalgamating tape. Now that should prevent most, if not all, water ingress. However, not everybody has that tape, and I also prefer to be sure. The tape over time might start leaking. So whilst you can do that, and if you want to do that of course you can, I much prefer to have this connection inside the housing. It's not going to get any direct rain on it. It's going to be much more protected. Don't forget you've got 48 volts coming up that cable, so if you start getting rust and fur on those connections, it could end up destroying your equipment. So if you haven't got somebody that can put the cable in for you using the crimp connection, and if you haven't got your own crimps, you can do that way, but I've now got another way, and the other way involves a 3D printer, which fortunately I've got several. So I've made three parts. Part one is a cylinder with a hole up the centre and a flanged end. Okay, The hole diameter is about 5.5, 6 mm. It's roughly what you need for a Cat5 cable. If your Cat5 cabling's bigger, you may need to make the hole slightly bigger. Part 2 is exactly the same. They are two halves of the same. So it prints them flat like that. You take the two parts off, and look, they even go together. The third part is a split ring, and this split ring fits over the two halves and holds them together. Okay, keeps them generally tight. It's not really tight, but it's holding them. So how does this work? If you haven't already figured it out yourself, you have your camera housing. Now the whole housing sticks out there. Fill a little hole in, put the little gland in and block it off to stop the spiders. And then in the big gland hole, you've got your Cat5 cabling already terminated that you've bought for the length that you need. And you push that through and make sure there's enough inside so you've got room to connect it to the big white connector that is here. You shouldn't need too much. Once that's through, what you then do is you push 1/2 of these into the hole. If I just rotate that round a little, you can see there we're half in. Now these holes should be the right size, but they may have a little bit of flash, a little bit of excess plastic. And if they have and you can't get these in, you can just trim it, but be very gentle because you don't want to make the hole too big, otherwise this connection will be too loose. Once we've got 1/2 in, we then put the other half on top. And it's a bit of a tight squeeze on this one, but once it starts going, it snaps in. We now have that connector held, and is a very quick solution. Now there's two options of holding it there. You can put some sealant or glue underneath and around that flange to hold it in, or you can do it another way. You could even do both, and that's where the ring comes in. So you take the ring and you pass it over the cable, and then with my thumb on the things to stop them pushing out, just push it over, and that ring would sit on there just like that. Now it's not going to hold it really tightly, but it's going to definitely hold it in place if yours is a little loose. Once that's in, what you can then do is you can put a zip tie or a cable tie around this split ring, and the split ring should shrink enough, there should be enough space so that you can get some really good tension on it. Once you've got tension on that, that ring isn't going anywhere, and unless you start really jumping on this cable, that cable is now secured inside a pre-terminated shop bought cable fitted inside without the need for any tools. So that is my, I'd say, unique solution. Somebody else has probably done it, but that's a solution that I'm going to supply to any UK Mon cameras that I'm setting up for people. If you don't have the tools to create your own Cat5 cable lengths, I will supply that so that you can purchase the lengths of cable that you require, and you can do this little fitting of this little piece of plastic, and you've then got the system ready for you. I think it's quite a good fix. If you have other fixes that you think are even better, then please let me know. I'd be interested to see. So there we go. Fortunately, a short video this time, just to show you a little solution. When you come to fit that ring, of course, normally it's inside the housing, like so. So it's a little bit more fiddly to get your fingers in. And don't try and do this up a ladder. Do this when you're in your house, where it's nice and warm. You can put the lights on, you can see exactly what you're doing and get that ring in. And then you could either glue around it on both sides, or tie wrap it and glue it. The choice is yours. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you found it useful. If you found this or any of the other videos useful, please hit the like and subscribe down below, and we'll do some more videos for you soon. Thank you. One final thing, if you want to get hold of the STL files for this and print your own, or get your friend to print it for you, we'll have a link in the description of this video down here. Thank you again.